Hi, welcome to the Expressed on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Adrian-Smith. This podcast is on a journey to uncover full, authentic expression, to support high achievers, entrepreneurs, and executives to reconnect with their life's purpose and live a rich life. I offer a novel path to move from dissatisfaction and anxiety into purpose, passion, and power. We'll be interviewing an intriguing array of intellectuals, thought leaders, facilitators, and guides who are being expressed on purpose, honing their crafts. Welcome to the Expressed on Purpose podcast. In this episode, I sit down with Dr. Bernadette Vötter, a clinical psychologist, breathwork practitioner, and holder of 4 degrees in psychology. Bernadette shares her personal and professional journey, shedding light on existentialism, trauma healing, and the quest for meaning in life, all through the lens of our shared journey into breathwork. The conversation explores the challenges high achievers face in finding belonging, the concept of generativity, which is creating something meaningful for future generations, and how trust in a skilled facilitator is crucial when diving into deep emotional work. Bernadette explains how breathwork can unlock suppressed memories and why living authentically it often involves embracing difficult emotions, especially anger and sadness, without judgment. Bernadette explains how breathwork can unlock suppressed memories and why living authentically involves embracing difficult emotions, especially anger and sadness, without judgment. We also examine the power of co-regulation, recognizing that healing occurs in a gentle, progressive steps. Whether you're curious about personal growth, emotional regulation, or simply learning to live in a more authentic life, this episode offers insights into the healing process and the profound ways breathwork can transform our inner landscape. Let's dive in. Hello, Bernadette. Welcome to the show, the Expressed on Purpose podcast. As I just mentioned, I'd love to start the show with a breath work together and just invite all the listeners to join in. It's very short. We'll just close our eyes, find a comfortable place wherever we're sitting right now. Hopefully you're not driving and you can close your eyes. And just start by taking a deep breath in through your nose, filling up your belly, and let it out with a sigh. Second breath, breathing in deep, filling up your belly, filling up your lungs all the way to the top. Last one, nice deep breath, filling up all the way down into your pelvic floor. Sigh. And I feel a bit more grounded. Welcome. Lovely to see you again after, it's been quite a few months now. It's been a while.
1.5 years.
1.5 years. Okay, that's more than a few months. It's true.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really a pleasure to see you again and to see your vibrancy and to see you back in your home territory from meeting in Bali. I'd love to set the scene a little bit about who you are, and then we'll go into how you met, and we'll start exploring the wonderful world of existentialism, breathwork, trauma, and shadow, and all of this juicy stuff afterwards. But just to begin, I'd love for you to share a bit about who Bernadette is.
Who Bernadette is. First of all, a human, and professionally I'm a clinical psychologist and breathwork practitioner, and I'm really devoted to psychology. I have 4 degrees in psychology, and I can't get enough of diving deep into this human experience and how to overcome certain traumas and adversities which this life throws at us. Mm-hmm. And yeah, besides my clinical work as a psychologist. I also worked as a researcher at the University of Innsbruck before I went to Bali, where we met. And yeah, in my research, I explored certain existential topics in association with mental health among highly gifted adults and high achievers. And yeah, besides of that, right now I have my private clinic here in Salzburg, and that's basically what I'm doing.
Beautiful, thank you. 4 degrees, I didn't realize you had 4. That's pretty...
Actually, I have 5, but 4 in psychology.
Okay, there we go. So my first question is kind of a big one, but it's for you to maybe explain a little bit about what existentialism means, or what existential psychology actually is.
So that's a big question. But I would describe it just as being and what makes it worth living this life. And I put a lot of brains into topics like meaning in life and crisis of meaning. And especially when it comes to a sense of, so you have to differentiate between meaning in life and the meaning of life. And meaning in life can be described as a state where you feel coherent with what you're doing in several life, how do you say it, in your private life, in your professional life, so that everything feels coherent to you, then that what you're doing feels significant to you, that there is a purpose in your work, in your being, and that there is a direction why you do certain things. And the last big column is that you have a certain sense of belonging. Belonging to a family, to a group, to a religion, to this human experience.
Yeah, beautifully said. In terms of coherence, you talk about professional and personal. What level of coherence do you see? Is that towards the values that the person holds, or coherence between how they're acting and how they perceive themselves on the inside? Maybe you can explain more about coherence.
Basically, it can be both of that. I think if you are a vegetarian and you professionally work as a butcher, that is not really coherent.
Yeah.
Because most probably your values are not aligned. But as you said, it's about values and how you feel with that. It's super subjective, so it's different from individuum to individuum.
And within your work, working with high achievers, as you said, which of these kind of 4 areas that you outlined, coherence, significance, direction, belonging, do you find that they most struggle with to kind of find the meaning in life?
Most of the time it was actually belonging. Especially with highly gifted adults. So I was researching adults, and with high achievers, the problem was that most of them haven't had a group where they felt a belonging to. And as soon as they found this circle, this group, everything got more open for them, and their meaning also evolved, basically.
Wow, yeah, that's a very powerful insight to have uncovered. And I feel like it's probably the epidemic of our time, in that everybody lives in isolation. We have our own apartments, our own houses, and we've lost kind of this third place that people used to have, in terms of you have your house as your first place, your work as your second place, and then this community hub, where it be the church or any kind of society of school and of kind of community that used to bring people together. You're kind of let out into the world, and now you've questioned your religious beliefs. You're no longer in the structure of the educational system. You're not in the community of your parents' home, and so to a degree you're kind of lost in the world and its magnitude. And so for these kind of high achievers and highly gifted people, and for anybody really, when they searched for that belonging, did you find that they were looking within one of these other pillars to find it? They were looking for people with similar values, or looking for people with significance, or was there any kind of steps towards a specific area that your results found?
So there are also, we call it qualities of meaning, and in this kind of research there are 26 qualities of meaning, and the best predictor for meaning in life is generativity. And generativity means that you create something in your life, with your life, which is not only for yourself, but for the whole, for future generations. And if people follow this direction where they first of all do something for themselves and live their potential, and if whatever they're doing also benefits the community or the world, then that's the best predictor for meaning in life, basically. And it's not surprising, but what I think is really, really cool that research data backs it up. How do you say it? Backs it up.
Yeah, backs it up. Yeah. Yeah, that is cool. It's kind of one of these things that somehow you know it when you're experiencing it. And there's the concept of the law of Dharma, which talks about being of service, being the way that you can fulfill your greatest potential, and that everybody has something to offer to the world. They have a special gift that they're good at and or better at than most other people. And somehow, the acts of service also kind of fits in with the significance and the direction piece. It's kind of then there's meaning in what you're offering to the world.
And when you're offering your gift, basically, there is this belonging and there is this community, because you go into relation, or you relate with others. Yeah.
Did your research find any significance in relation to the nuances between men and women, and within that, the nuance between family and professional and personal life? Because as a father myself, there's kind of this nuance of, my kids, I love them so much and I'm supporting them to be their best versions of themselves and to flourish in this world. And yet as a man, I still also need another purpose in life. Otherwise I feel unfulfilled somehow if I'm only with the kids all the time.
Yeah. So it's not my research which found those results, but research of my colleagues. And there's definitely data that shows that children add to your meaning in life, to your sense of meaning. But that doesn't mean that it's it's all about happiness all the time, because meaning is not equal with happiness. Meaning in life doesn't equal happiness. When you feel meaning, or when you experience a meaningful life, it also can be kind of hard as well. But in the long run, people who have a child experience more meaning in life.
Interesting.
But it also depends how, as I said before, there are those qualities of meaning, those 26 qualities of meaning, and it's important to have a broad variety of different qualities. And if you have only one, and this one breaks away, it's hard to compensate.
Interesting. So from the studies, then it was to see a breadth, to have the stability, and then a depth in a certain area, or was it to have multiple areas where you go deep into the different qualities?
It can be both, but the broader it is, the better.
Nice, interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to share in the show notes your research and what these qualities are and kind of list them out so people.
Yeah, but the qualities, I just have to add that's not my research. It's from a colleague of mine.
Yeah,
I just
great.
used it in mine as well. Yeah.
Okay, nice, great. That's a great piece to reference and to kind of bring into your work.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a great point to then transition into some of our united shift of the work that we do into breathwork, of how we actually met for the first time. And so, yeah, it was about, I guess, 2 years ago when we met, roughly. And it was in a breathwork circle where we were both in what's called the Shala in Bali, this beautiful bamboo structure at Desa Lima, gathered around as individuals who didn't know each other to lie down on the mat and be guided by some amazing facilitators, Edward Dangerfield and Satori and Pete Byrne, and to consciously connect our breath to go through a breathwork journey under their approach called FBR breathwork, facilitated breathwork repatterning. And we started with a 1-month container, doing 2 sessions a week, and then both you and I went into doing the 400-hour teacher training within the FBR breathwork and breath lab container. And so I'm happy to share my thoughts. I'd love to hear from you what your experience was like, what the kind of foundational transformation was that you experienced from being who you were before to being who you are after the journeys that we went on.
This time in the Shala was life-changing for me. There were breathwork sessions which supported me in really closing one of my heaviest traumas. And you were a witness in that one. And after that one, my whole being got much lighter, because I don't know how far I should go in the topic.
Let's go into it. I think this is like, I still have a very vivid image of you at the peak of that journey. And so, yeah, I would love for you to share a bit more about the trauma, about the experience, and about the journey, because I think this really gives a picture of A, the power of breath work as a tool for healing, and B, how we can kind of live our lives with these things below the surface that will be infiltrated to our entire existence. And there is the capability of healing, by feeling through the full experience. So I'd love for you to tell more about what happened in the journey.
I will start at the beginning of the whole trauma. So when I was 15, I got diagnosed with a huge tumor in my chest, and it had to be removed immediately to make sure that I will survive, basically. And it was a big surgery, and they opened my sternum, my chest. And during the surgery, I got conscious, and I not only got conscious, I even felt all the pain of this open chest. So the surgery was on my lungs, on my vocal cords, and it was at this moment terror and pain, and it was unbearable in this moment for me. And at some point they noticed that I'm awake. Basically, it was a medical failure at this point. And what happened afterwards was that in this situation I had to dissociate myself from my body to be able to survive, because it was so painful, the situation. And it wasn't obvious immediately after, but when I think back, my life was super numb after this surgery. And it was so I basically had a good life. I mean, I was a high achiever. I had all of the possibilities, but still there was always this heaviness, this black cloud above me. And I was never able to really fully tap into this easeful, joyful states. And when I turned 30, or shortly after my 30th birthday, I had my first flashback, and it was super random. It was at a dentist appointment, and I did this tooth cleaning thingy, what you do once a year. And she was a little bit rough, and I had this tube in my mouth. And yeah, this situation triggered the situation 15 years ago.
Wow.
And out of the sudden, this overwhelm rushed through my body, and I knew exactly in which situation I'm in. And the thing was, I didn't really work on this trauma after it happened. And it was like locked, you know? I just was like, yeah, it was there, and now it's gone, tumor is gone, it's fine. And that was a really scary moment for myself. And I was able to re-resource myself in this moment, and I told her to stop, and I stopped the whole, basically the appointment, and I went home. And at this point, I already was a psychologist and in my PhD. And I was super scared because I knew that I can't control it anymore. I can't hold it down anymore. I can't contain it. And for me, it was the scariest thought to really, first of all, to feel it again. And second, I had no trust in anyone that anyone could hold this, what I'm telling them. And because it's not just what happened in the surgery, there happened a lot of other things after the surgery. And so I was like, fuck. Congratulations, Bernadette, you're already a psychologist, you're in your PhDs, and now you don't trust any of your colleagues. That's cool. So what I did to gain more safety was so I was not specialized in clinical psychology, and I knew I have to talk with those professionals. And to gain more safety, I decided to study clinical psychology, and I added a master's in clinical psychology and also a training. And during this time, it's a lot of work to do just to feel safe, but I'm happy that I did it. And during this process, I widened my network, and I had all those amazing mentors and colleagues, and I shared my story with them and asked them if they can match me with someone. And my former boss at this time and a dear colleague, both of them told me about a practitioner, and I went to her and I worked with her in a psychoanalytical way, which was super profound for me and helped me a lot. And still, I got released about it, and I learned so much about myself and psychodynamics in general. So I really don't want to miss all of this. But still, I knew that there is something inside of me which is still on fire and wants to come out. And I knew it's in my body, and I had no idea how to access it. And I really tried everything. I did a lot of alternative stuff, also a lot of yoga, pranayama, and so on. And then it was the COVID year, and I signed up for a retreat, a breathwork retreat, and I had no idea what I was going into, but I thought it's like a little bit of pranayama and relaxing and so on. And it was actually, they used also conscious connected breathing. And during the first or second session, I tapped into one of those situations where I had not the main surgery situation, but when I had the tubus still in and was awake, and nobody noticed that from the staff. And it was actually a scary situation, but I was so fascinated to access this memory and not feeling too overwhelmed to be with it. Mm-hmm. At this point, during the sessions, I wasn't able to complete it, but it was the first time that...
I'm going to have to pause you there. Sorry. Right in the middle of the conversation. Okay. Where were we?
Yeah, I told you that I was able to access memories. Mm-hmm. And the profound part of it was for me to notice that I can access it with my cognitive mind and relive it with my body. And it's not too overwhelming. And if it's not too overwhelming, and at the same time there is somebody who holds the space for you. Mm-hmm. But at this time it wasn't safe enough to really complete everything. It was just tapping in. And after this retreat, I was hooked on nervous system regulation, breathwork and everything. And I did my research and I wanted to train in this modality, but I wasn't sure what's out there. So I did my research, and then I found this guy in Bali, and I texted him, and I never heard back from him. And some more months went by, and there was still this knowing in me that that's the way. So I also looked other schools and everything, but nothing was really, especially with my scientific background, nothing really catched me. So what I did, I flew to Bali and just went into the shallow. And yeah, some months later, I was in the training, and since then I'm basically hooked on breathwork. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing.
That's a long story, the long first part of the story.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think that's a technique, because I also messaged and then had no reply, and also then went to Bali and did the training. So there we go. So just kind of thank you for sharing, and yeah, wow, what a journey to have gone through. I can't imagine really much worse or much more of a horrific experience than to wake up in the middle of a surgery and to have that as a 15-year-old, and then to kind of go back to life and to just push all of that down beneath the surface, and to kind of have it there lingering in the background. And so I would like to kind of, you mentioned about the cognitive aspect where you are partly able to touch into it and feel it through your body. And then for me, and maybe for you, this journey of healing within that trauma really culminated in this session, which you were very bravely enough to offer as what was called a breath translation, where Edward was doing a facilitation with you, with the other participants of the training, about 10 people watching you breathing. And then coincidentally, this is kind of the curious piece of breath work of some sessions you'll be very targeted and want to work on something, and your mind and your body will go completely a different direction and will say, nope, I'm not going to go there. But somehow you'd built up enough safety or felt safe enough in this container or with him or however number of circumstances that allowed you at some level to go into that experience. So maybe you can tell a bit about that experience.
So as you mentioned, we did this ESP together, and I already noticed during those first 2 weeks that something builds up. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had flashbacks for quite some while until then, and I knew that it's brewing inside of me. Mm-hmm. And I talked about this with Edward, and he invited me to do this breath translation. And my system was ready immediately to do it. And at the same time, it was super scary, not to go into that, but also to do it while being witnessed by 10 or more people in the room, because it was one of the most traumatic experiences and super intimate for me. Plus, I don't like to be witnessed by others. I'm not the person who likes to be in the spotlight. So that was really a really challenge for me. And in the morning of the breath translation, I really wanted to run, because it was not, I think it's important to understand that it's not just you can consciously pick a topic and tap into it. It was a long process, as I mentioned. So I worked on these topics at this point for, let's say, consciously 5 years, not daily, but with several modalities. And I opened it slowly and slowly and really gentle. And I think that was a reason why it was able to come out at this day. And then the other one was my connection with Edward. So I really trusted him. I knew his nervous system basically felt really safe for me. And I think that's especially a thing when you had a traumatic experience, that you need to find someone where you really trust that this person can hold you the space and doesn't run when it pops up. Because, you witnessed it, and many of the other guys were kind of overwhelmed after just watching, you know? So that's also one point I want to mention, that it's important that there is trust, and there needs to be this readiness to really dive into it, and not just from the client, but also from the practitioner. And I think there needs to be a lot of awareness from the practitioner and embodiment of certain emotions and certain situations to hold space for such profound processes. And I simply was ready, because I was like, okay, I'm 35 now, and I don't want to take this shit into my grave, you know. I don't want to do it. And I remember before we started, I asked how much time do we have, and he said 45 minutes, and I was like, okay. And after 44 minutes, I was done, because I'm a perfectionist as well. So but what happened in this session, I was able to really focus on myself and not see you guys around me. And I knew this is really important for me. And I just opened up, and I let my body do whatever it needed to do. And I let all the reflexes come through, and whatever sound and everything. And what happened was that I really was in that situation of the surgery, and it was so profound, because I felt all this terror, this pain, and at the same time I even noticed little stitches when the surgeon stitched me up again. And I remember that situation, because during the situation I felt how important it was for him to do it as gentle as possible. And while you guys were watching, especially when you have a trauma, a PTSD, during breathwork, you're not able to close your eyes all the time. So you always check your surrounding, you open it a little bit, and you check what's going on outside. And I did that, and I noticed some of you guys, And that was also super healing because it was a corrective experience to the situation 50 or 20 years ago, where those other surgeons were standing around me and looking at me. And I think what happened in this setting was super powerful because you and some of the others were, at this time we didn't know each other, but some of the others were really good friends of mine. And it was so important for me to have the support of all of you guys around me. Yeah, and I was able to tap into certain waves of this experience because after the surgery in intense care, I was clinical dead for a while, and I left my body, but that's a different experience, a different story. But also this experience popped into my breathwork journey at this point. And the interesting part, we only had 45 minutes and I was able to relive all of this and re-resource myself with the help of the facilitator. Every time when my nervous system had or when my nervous system was unsure or scared or whatsoever, it felt like a dance that he jumped in his nervous system and helped me to go through it. And when I re-resourced myself again, it's more like an energetic part, or it felt like his nervous system went back and gave me the space to do it myself and to claim my power again. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of meta to be able to explain how a person's nervous system can co-regulate another person, how it can support them in this, because it's such an intangible thing. You know, there is some physicality to the facilitation, but maybe you can confirm this, but when you're talking about his nervous system was there is this emotional level to it rather than a physical level to it.
Absolutely. And at the same time, you have to add that he is highly skilled in all what he is doing and every touch and body work what he is doing.
Yeah. And the setting of that, it's bringing most things, it's kind of coming back full circle into meaning and into belonging, and being in this container where you're able to be seen and held and accepted as you are in the experience you're going through in the fullest expression, and to still be held and not to be rejected and not to be judged and not to be pushed away or lose that love connection, somehow is one of the most healing things that a human can do. You know, this is kind of why a lot of ayahuasca journeys are in circle, why men's group work is in circle, why, you know, some of these breathwork circle containers are so powerful, because there is that relationship between each of the participants and the facilitator, and that co-regulation dynamics forms a part of the experience. And while I don't know much about the science behind it, I've experienced it myself multiple times, and I feel like it's amazing to hear your story, especially on the other level of the similarities between kind of being surrounded by surgeons and also being surrounded by other kind of co-practitioners and co-clients to really go through that, and somehow living it again, but in a safer container where your nervous system had the resourcefulness to say, I don't need to disassociate this time. I don't need to check out this time. I can be with the experience. And that is the healing aspect of it, is to move through the emotional terror and the pain. And interestingly, it's very intense and very fast. And there's this modality I've been following called the Psychedelic Somatic Institute. And he really talks about these four stages of trauma, and or 4 stages of the nervous system. Stage 0 being completely relaxed, nothing's happening, and he uses the example of a gazelle and a lion. Stage 0 being relaxed, the gazelle's just chewing on some grass. Stage 1, suddenly there's a rustle in the trees, and you're alert, you're ready. Stage 2, holy shit, there's a lion chasing me, life and death, I have to run as fast as humanly possible. This is the big terror moment of this is life and death. Stage 3, you're caught, and then you start to dissociate, start to check out. Stage 4, you're being eaten alive, and you have to fully dissociate because it's too intense to be with it. Or what happens, and there's some amazing videos of it, in stage 3, gazelle plays dead, lion moves away thinking they're dead, and then suddenly the gazelle's like, oh shit, I have a chance to run again. Back into stage 1, super intense, run fast as humanly possible, and then you escape, and then you're back into stage 1, and then stage 0. And so within this journey, and from the experience, it was observing you going from these stage 3 and 4, and allowing yourself, having done all of this experiencing and journeying within the psychoanalytical world, within your mind, from titrating into it before touching into it, and then being in this container with Edward and with these other practitioners to be able to say, okay, I'm now capable and able and willing to face the intensity of that stage 2, deeply emotional and intense and scary and terrifying journey. And it was done in a flash of an eye, to a degree, a super intense experience. And there were a couple of segments to it as we watched you kind of go in and out. And then it was complete. And then it was past that and in the other stage. And the thing that I observed, which was really breathtaking for me, was seeing you before that. And there was this intangible kind of darkness. There was this intangible kind of shroudedness to your energy and your light that was kind of hidden away somehow, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And then afterwards, kind of seeing your face looked completely different. You lit up, and suddenly you were just energetically more you were more present in your body, you were more alive, you were cleared of some of this emotional heaviness that was weighing you down before. And so for me to really observe it sitting across from you in the circle and be like, holy shit, she's changed. There was this transformation in this short period of time. And yes, it was kind of the culmination of this whole journey, but there really was this distinct before and after of this experience. And it was pretty breathtaking to really see that. And I don't think I've worked with quite a few clients now where it's been similar, but I've never seen that level of transformation in that short period of time to that degree. And I wonder now how it's been for you. Obviously, you were just able to talk about the experience, and there still is, it's still, to be able to touch into it at all, there is a somewhat of an emotional charge. But how is your life now, having moved through that, in relation to, are there any flashbacks? How kind of healed do you feel around it? And what's kind of your perspective on these kind of traumas? It's one thing feeling through the emotions, but that will always be a memory in your memory, and whether or not you can touch into it without the charge anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I think the important part is also to mention that you can't force something like that.
Right.
Cognitively. It was, to a certain degree, luck and skill set of the facilitators, and also my readiness and all the work I did before. So I wouldn't say that breathwork can do it with anyone. And I would be really cautious about claiming such things. But for me, it worked. And for me, this breathwork session was just the start to really make a full circle for the situation. And as you said, it wasn't, the memory wasn't charged anymore. And I haven't had any flashbacks since then, but it was just a start, because what came up afterwards was that my whole upper body was in a functional freeze for over 20 years, which means that my whole rib cage, shoulders, and everything which is related there, I was able to function, but I had no conscious access to it. I had no feeling to it. For instance, with my shoulder blades, if a physiotherapist would touch me there and tell me what to do, I could do it. But I knew how it looks, how the movement should be, but I wasn't able to do it consciously. Mm-hmm. And many breathwork sessions followed, really deep transformational breathwork sessions, and I think especially with freeze, it needs highly skilled practitioners because it's basically not really spottable from the outside. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's what happened. And now I'm at a point where I would say I claimed back my whole upper body.
Wow.
Which is really, really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think just it's also not spottable from the outside. And also it's hard to be aware of it from the inside because you're numb.
Yeah.
And so you actually don't know that it's not engaged. You don't remember somehow what it felt like. It's just numb.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, that's a good point because I was 15 when it happened. So my body knew how it feels in a normal state. And that was my luck to a certain degree, because when I tapped into this feeling, for instance, my whole shoulder blade out of the sudden remembered and started to regain all those nerves and whatsoever. I'm not trained in explaining what's there, but I witnessed it. And we did a lot of sessions in the lab. I think you weren't there with my shoulder blade, right? But
no, I think
the others were like eating popcorn and drinking Coke and just watching what happened there. And yeah, it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. Amazing to be able to have gone through that journey. And then now I think it's interesting to reflect on whether or not it takes someone to have gone into those kind of depths and come out to have the level of capacity to help other people through similar kind of transformational journeys, or do you think that can be trained? Because I guess my question is, how does somebody create that level of stability within their nervous system in order that they can help others to go into those depths?
I think certain things can be trained, but it comes all together to an embodiment of all those emotions you have and how comfy you are with your anger, with your fear, with your joy, because it's not always about those heavy emotions. It's also how big is your capacity to be with joy. Mm-hmm. And if the facilitator is not able to hold joy, then most probably the client can't tap as deep into it as the client could if the facilitator is also really in sync with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's my opinion. I think people don't have to go through similar experiences because that would be insane. But I think it needs a lot of compassion and presence from the facilitator. And I also think that the facilitator needs to be able to stay calm and in a meditative state when shit hits the fan. And because the worst would be when a person goes into the scary moments and the facilitator is like, fuck, what should I do? And it's just, it's super subtle because, as we said before, our nervous system co-regulate each other. And if you as the facilitator think, oh my gosh, I want to run, then it doesn't feel safe anymore to tap into that. But the problem is you already opened it. And then it's lingering again. So
Yeah, there's kind of the risk of having such a powerful tool as this and other modalities really to open people up and not being able to contain them or effectively hold space for them to move through it. And this is kind of the issue with completing trauma, is that if you don't complete it, then you could either magnify it or have it pushed down further, because now there's another example within your mind of saying it wasn't safe to experience that. And so it's really very, very particular work and able to navigate that space.
Yeah, and I think that's also a danger in the whole breathwork bubble, that it's super easy to open people. You don't have to be skilled to open people, but the really skill set happens to be able to read the nervous system, the capacity of the person, the window of tolerance, and then being able to contain whatever comes up and be with that. And I think nobody is able to contain everything. That would be insane. But I think there needs to be a lot of personal practice and experience and embodiment, and it's not done with just a 400-hour training.
Right. Yeah. It's a lifelong journey, and somehow it's a continual journey that you're never really fully prepared, because, as you said, there's always something else that will expand your container to go deeper. One of the things which maybe would be interesting to talk about that I've personally found challenging, and some of my clients also found challenging, is this concept of allowing, allowing yourself to express within that space. I wonder if you have any insights from your journey of how people in general can allow themselves to express more fully.
I think it has to do a lot with the perceived safety. And I also think we as practitioners, or it would be insane to assume as a practitioner that a person has, from the first second, the trust to lay down, close her eyes, and go in whatever. And I think sometimes it just needs time, and we need to build rapport with our clients and give them the time and the space what they need. And for some people, it takes longer to experience the safety to fully express, and for others, it's super easy. And I think practitioners sometimes project too much, or they're not project, but there is the temptation to project certain personal expectations or whatsoever on our client. And clients also have it, because they sometimes think only those heavy expressions are the ones which are healing. And I think that's not fully the truth, because often not often, most of the time, healing happens in those gentle, soft ways, where our nervous system feels safe to tap into certain things, and sometimes it doesn't need a lot of expression to do so. It especially when you are always activated and used to go into this fight states, then it's a super healing experience to realize how it feels to really soften into a situation and not fight it.
Yeah. And this is one of the things of, it's hard to use words to describe it, because it's a felt thing to allow and to soften and to open and to connect with these sensations. And it really has to be a body experience to experience it. This kind of brings me on to another topic, which is kind of part of the essence of this podcast. And it's this idea, my own personal journey, exploring this concept of full, authentic expression. Maybe you can share about what your understanding or kind of definition would be of this idea of full authentic expression, what that means to you.
Full authentic expression is, in my opinion, whatever wants to come through, that you express it. And that you don't put your mind on it, how it could or should look like or sound like or whatsoever, and just allowing whatever comes through your body. And that again needs a certain degree of letting go and accepting that it might not sound or look pretty.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And this analogy I always often turn to is kind of with children. And children don't have this filtering system built into their expression and their authenticity. They're just full tantrum and then full joy the moment later. And it's wild, the speed at which they can transition from one emotion to the other. And then they often, when they're very young, don't hold on to the emotion, whereas adults will suppress. And maybe you can talk a bit about this in terms of navigating the professional and modern day world while still attaining this level of full authentic expression, because it really is this skill to wield, to be able to be authentic but also be appropriate in a workspace. You don't want to be having a full-blown tantrum in your office because someone's told you something you don't like, and at the same time there might be a part of you that feels that that is a just response because that is maybe a trauma response, or that is how you want to react. And so to be able to train this ability to suppress in the moment and then later on touch back into it and to feel through, rather than to just push it down and constantly be pushing down all these emotional reactions, which kind of builds up and leads to then exploding later because you have no capacity to deal with whatever's arising. And so I wonder if you touched upon this in any of your work in relation to highly gifted people or high achievers, of how attuned they have been within this skill of emotional kind of regulation in a healthy way.
With the high achievers and highly gifted group, there is no reference to your question. But I think that's when our adult mind comes in and our adult meta perspective, so that we, in a critical situation when we want to blow up, for instance, in a job setting, but we notice, okay, this reaction wouldn't be helpful for myself. And still there's a lot of anger going on inside of me, but I'm able to hold it and to react in a kind way to others. And for me, I think the important part is to find ways how you can tap into this, let's say, anger after this situation when you're basically at home. And there are so many exercises or ways to get in touch with your emotion, and sometimes they're super easy and maybe look a little bit disturbing from the outside. I often ask my clients or give them the suggestion that they could go into the forest and or in the nature where nobody is and just scream or punch a pillow or whatsoever. Just get in touch with this emotion and feel it. Because you don't have to project it onto someone else, but you have to feel it through for yourself. Yeah,
that's exactly the way I see it as well. It's we're kind of living in this modern day world of seeking comfort and avoiding the discomfort of life, and actually aliveness often comes through the discomfort. And there's been moments where I've connected into anger, having previously said, I'm not an angry person, I'm a nice guy, that's not me. And then finally realizing, holy shit, there's a lot of anger underneath the surface, because I've just created this mask of a people pleaser. And I've then just become very skilled at pushing things down and pushing myself into a disassociated state because it's too intense to hold. And so going through that journey of allowing myself to fully experience and fully express anger and rage, and the kind of the wildness of it, and the messiness of it. And I'm kind of some of the experiences of screaming and hitting and getting into these big rage states. I'm like, no one should ever see me do these things.
Yeah.
And no one, to be able to be seen in that experience as well. And there's been some experiences I've been through in Bali as well, where we were able to be in connection with an other, fully experiencing anger, and to have them hold space for you and say, I'm here with you, and I'm with you. I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to reject you. And to just allow that anger to explode out, and then recognize that for a lot of men, there's a sadness beneath it. And
for a lot of humans.
For humans, yeah, and indeed, for a lot of humans, it was something Edward said of, for a lot of women, there's sadness first, and then there's anger. And for a lot of men, there's anger first, and then there's sadness. But I think this idea of anger in society is again kind of warped, because within the workplace or within macho masculinity, there's a lot of aggression, and there's a lot of pushing around, and there's a lot of kind of cutthroat culture. And somehow that's acceptable. It's acceptable that a boss shouts at somebody at work, or it's acceptable that a man or a woman shout at each other. And yet it hasn't become accepted to say, we're going to welcome you to fully experience your anger. And here's how to experience your anger, is to basically look at what kids do, i.e. scream, hit things, throw things, go wild, and fully experience the emotion that wants to move through you, fully allow it to burn, and to physically, through sound and through breath, come through you. And then afterwards you just feel this cathartic release of like, oh, that feels better. Don't have to hold this anymore. And so, yeah, I think that's a really powerful topic to really explore within ourselves, is this relationship with anger, and as you said, relationship with joy, and this allowing of these emotions to come out in their messiness instead of their well-presented box of, I'm going to allow one single tear to come out of my eye, and that's my sadness. Or I'm going to allow my joy to come out in a perfect laugh rather than a snort or a funny sound that wants to emerge. Because the human form is really this messy and beautiful beast that is wild on the one side, and we're trying to tame it in our society. And for me, this journey of full authentic expression really touches into that. So thanks for sharing your perspective as well. This is kind of rounding us up to the end of the show, and something I always love to ask is, if you had one message to share, and this would be your final message to share, and this was the only thing people would hear from you for the rest of your life, and this is your legacy. No pressure.
Pressure.
No pressure. But what would your sharing insight be with the world?
My sharing would be to always follow your heart and find or make a way to live the life you really want to live, and not keeping in a box, in a system where you feel this is not for you. And just have the courage and follow your heart.
Beautiful. Easily said and somehow challenging to do.
Yeah.
But thank you for that. I totally resonate with that guidance. And if anybody wants to find out more about you and about what you do, what's the best way to learn about your work and to get in touch and maybe do a session with you?
You find me on Instagram, and on my website it's bernadettevötter.com.
Beautiful. And do you have space for clients right now?
I have a waiting list, yeah.
Okay. Of course. Very, very powerful work that you do. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and your time. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you found some nuggets of wisdom that you can take away and start implementing in your own life. If you did, then it would mean a lot to me if you gave the show 5 stars and subscribed. That way you can come back for more next week and help spread the word. And if you really loved it and you want to find out more about how to work with me and how I can help you, then check out the links below or head over to my website, www.richadriansmith.com. And if this is bye for now, then I wish you a rich life.